Hi everyone, welcome back. So in this video, this is what we're going to do. We're going to build a Node.js application. We're going to deploy it. We're not going to use Jenkins or anything yet. We're going to deploy it using like a simple deploy script. We're going to have an nginx as the proxy, and we're going to load balance them across two Node.js virtual machines. The two VMs, just to give the idea of how the load balancing works with nginx. So this is what we are planning to do today. Load balancing using nginx, and then launching the VMs using Vagrant. And we're going to configure the virtual machines, all three of the virtual machines using Ansible. And then we're going to pull our code from our own Git server that we created in the previous video. And then we're going to have a simple shell script to actually do the manual deployment. By manual deployment, I mean we have to run the script manually, and then it will do the deployment. So this is how it's going to look. We're going to have an nginx proxy, and then we're going to load balance it across two Node.js virtual machines. So we're going to have the same code running in these two Node.js machines. All right, so the first thing that we need to do is we need to launch the VMs. So we have three VMs, and we're going to launch them using Vagrant. So under the infrastructure directory, we have the Vagrant directory, and under that we have the Node.js app. So we can see the Git server from the previous video. So the Node.js app, so if I open the Vagrant file, this is nothing fancy. We have been using the same Vagrant file over and over again. We just copy paste stuff and just edit where we need to edit. So there are three VMs in here. The first one is the nginx VM. You can see the name here, and we're going to set the IP address as 10. The second one is the Node.js app backend 1, and that one has the IP address of 11. The third one is Node.js backend 2. That one has the IP address of 12. So if you don't know about Vagrant and how it works, go ahead and watch the previous Vagrant video. I'll link that in the description. Again, we are only provisioning the SSH key here so that we can actually run Ansible commands against these VMs. So we have our Vagrant file here. So I'm just going to go ahead and launch the VMs. All right, so from the same directory, I have done Vagrant app. You should do Vagrant app -- provision. But since I have already done that, I just did Vagrant up, and all three virtual machines are up right now. You can see that we have 4 VMs running so far. The first one is the Git server, then the nginx for the Node.js app, and then the two Node.js backend applications. All right, so next we need a application to deploy. So I'm just going to have an Express.js based application. So Express.js is a Node.js framework. We're going to use this, and we're going to have a simple hello world application. Actually, I forgot. Yeah, obviously we need to configure our virtual machines with Ansible so that it has all the stuff that it needs. So we have 3 VMs to configure. First one is the nginx VM, and then 2 Node.js applications. On the nginx VM, we just need the nginx installed, and then we need to have nginx service managed, and then we need to have the virtual host configuration, and that's it. Similarly, on the Node.js VMs, we just need Node.js installed, and that's it. The remaining npm install and all we will do from the deployment step. So here under the Ansible directory, I have created, so there are 4 Ansible roles here. The first one is common, then nginx-common, then nginx-nodejs app, and then nodejs-common. So the common means this contains stuff like git, vim, etc. that is common for all the VMs. This is not specific to Node.js or nginx or anything. We just want to have some packages installed everywhere. So we have the common role. So if we take a look at the common role, and there is only a task directory here, and if we see, we have vim, git, and curl installed using the apt module. So that's the common role. And then the nginx-common. So nginx-common means this is a role that is applicable to any VM running nginx. So if we take a look at nginx-common, basically install nginx and make sure that it is running. That's it. And then the third one is nginx-nodejs app. So this is specific to our Node.js app, the one that we are talking about here. So that means that will have the virtual host configuration specific to that application. So if we take a look at that nginx-nodejs app, so this one has a few stuff here. So this one has a handlers, tasks, templates, and variables. Okay. So this is a role. This is the name of the role, Node.js, nginx-nodejs app. So when we create roles like this, we have to create separate directories for each of these. First, let's talk about tasks. So if I open the main.yaml, so there are 2 tasks here. The first one is to create the document root. So here, if you see that we are using the file module to create a path which here just says like, curly braces dot dot. And this is how we access a variable in Ansible. So where does this come from? So that is where the vars directory comes. So here, if I go here, you can see that we have mentioned here the doc root as var ww nodejs dot whatever. And server name is also, this is the server name that we are planning to give. Actually, this does not belong here. I'll just remove it. So because here we are dealing with nginx only, so only the server name and the doc root matters here. So back to the main.yaml. So here we access variables using this double curly braces. So here we will get the value of this variable, that is document root. So this one. And the next task is to create the virtual host. So here we are using the template, which is defined under the templates directory. So if I go here, so the name you can see vhost.conf.j2. So this J2 means this is a Jinja 2 template. As you know, Ansible is based on Python and Jinja 2 is a template engine for Python. So this is what's used by Django, Flask, and frameworks like that. So Ansible also uses Jinja 2 for templating purposes. So what is the use of a template? So here, this is the virtual host. Usually what we do is we just create an nginx-conf as a static file, and we put everything that we need in the file. What if we have to manage multiple servers? Like what if we had to add like a 5 more virtual hosts in the same server? Then we're gonna have to have 5 different config files, right? What templates allows us to do is we can have a single template and we can just change whatever we need to change. So in this case, the only thing that we need to change is the server name. So if we want to have another application, we can just use the same template. We just have to have a different server name. So where does this server name come from? Again, the server name comes from here, from the same variables file. All right. So what happens is when we run Ansible, it will take this template and it will take all the variables from here and it will replace all the variables present in the template with the actual value. So here we specify the destination. That means after rendering the template, Ansible should place this file under this location, which is etc nginx sites enabled, then the name of the website, which is nodejs devops.esc.sh. And here we can see that another thing, notify restart nginx. Well, why is that? Well, that is because whenever we change the config file, we need to have nginx restarted so that the changes take effect, right? So this is handled by handlers. So that's what we have defined here, handlers. So if I come here, you can see that the name of the handler, restart nginx, which is the same as here. And in that, we're just saying service nginx restarted. So what happens is whenever Ansible come across this, and if it actually changes the destination file, then it will notify this handler, which is to restart nginx. All right, so we have everything we need for our nginx server. So the next one is the nodejs server. So let's take a look at the role for the nodejs server. If we go to the nodejs-common role, there are 2 directories, tasks and variables. So we only have tasks and variables. We don't have any handlers here. So under the tasks, we have a few things. First one is apt key. Because we're going to be using this apt repository, we need to add their GPG key so that our system knows to trust them. So we're adding this. And the next one is we're adding the repository itself. So we have to add 2 repositories. So we are adding the dev.nodesource.com repository. Again, we are using this with items as we did before. So what it does is we have 2 items in this list. So it's gonna iterate over each of them and it's gonna add these repositories into our system. In this task, we are registering it as like a node repo, and we are using this here, which is the next task, that is to update the apt cache. So this will only be applicable if this was changed. That is, if we just added the repository, then it will run apt-get update. All right, and the final step is to have nodejs and npm install. So here we are mentioning that we need to have we're using the apt module again, and we need to have nodejs installed, and the version of nodejs again comes from the variable here, which is 12. And there is star here because we don't really know the exact version, so we're just saying like I need to have nodejs 12 point whatever. So that's pretty much it for our 3 servers. Okay, so now let's take a look at our hosts file. So we have the Git server we added before, and now we have the Node.js app frontend, which is the nginx, and then we have two backends, which is the Node.js servers 1 and 2. And if we take a look at the playbook, again we have the Git server here, and for the Node.js application, we have two entries here. First one for the Node.js app frontend hosts, remote user, again Vagrant, and we're gonna have these three roles: the common role, nginx-common, and nginx-nodejs app. And for our Node.js backend applications, which just have Node.js, we will have the common and then the nodejs-common, which we just talked about. Okay, let's go ahead and run this. Okay, so I'm in the Ansible directory. So I'm gonna run it using Ansible playbook -i hosts and then the playbook name. Oh, okay, we have an error here. Invalid characters were found in group names. Okay, that is probably because we have the hyphens here, right? Yeah. So I'm just gonna rename that to underscore, which obviously we need to change it in the playbook also. Okay, that error is gone. So I got this error while trying to install the Node.js application. The error is hash some mismatch here. That is, the hash for the Debian file that was downloaded, this one, does not match the actual hash it was expecting. So I have been trying really hard to fix what's happening here. So this seems to be something to do with the combination of Windows 10, VirtualBox, and something freaky that Windows does. I don't know what happens, but what I figured out was inside the VM, the deb file that was downloaded was actually corrupted. What I did was I actually went to the dev.nodesource.com/node12.x and then went into the Node.js directory and found out the actual link to that Debian file, which is this, and then I downloaded onto my local machine, not on the virtual machine, but onto WSL itself. I'll show you what I mean. So let me just log into the Node.js backend machine, which was 11 and 12, 33.11. Okay, so I downloaded that and I tried to install it using dpkg. But here you can see that it says, gzip read error. That means this Debian, this deb file is actually corrupted. Now I have no idea why it happens, but this happens only inside the VirtualBox virtual machine itself. So what I did is I'm gonna scp this, the file that I have downloaded onto my local machine and onto the 11's home directory. So let me just go ahead and the deb file is here. So I'll do dpkg-i, and that installs without an issue. So if you are also facing this issue, you can try this. Actually, I have no idea why this happens. I tried to figure it out, but none of the solutions I found on the internet worked for me. So yeah, okay, obviously we have to do the same for the second machine. So that was 12. So I'm gonna log into the same, and yeah, sudo dpkg-i. All right, let's run Ansible again. So this time, it went fine. So everything is installed. We can see node version 12.18 is installed. All right, so let's take a look at our nginx VM. If I take a look at nginx sites enable nodejs, okay, so here we can see that everything is present. So that comes to load balancing with nginx. So why do we need to load balance? Because in a real world application, it's not a good idea to have a single applications running. So if something happens to that and it crashes, then that means your whole application will be down. And that's never a good idea. Also, what happens when you have more and more traffic coming into your application and that you need to scale up, or you need to have more copies of your backend application running? Or that's where the load balancing come into picture. So here we have just two servers as backends. The 11 and 12 that we just created, both are running on port number 3000. And we add the upstream like this: upstream, a name of the upstream, and then server, then the server address and the port number, then the next one. And here we talked about proxy pass and reverse proxy using nginx in a previous video. Here the only difference is that here when we are doing proxy pass, we are giving the name of this upstream. In this case, it is node app. So what nginx will do is nginx will alternatively pass each request to one of these backend. And nginx is smart enough to understand when one of the backend is actually down. It will only proxy the request to a healthy application. Okay, but we don't have anything running in these servers now. So what happens if I go ahead and open this? First, let's just verify that the DNS is actually set. Okay, so it's actually set to 33.10, which is the nginx server. So if I do curl, yeah, of course, bad gateway. Because we don't have any backend running. We have nginx running, fine, but we don't have any of the Node.js applications running, right? So that comes to the next step, that is to have our sample application. So I have a sample application here. So this is an Express.js based application. It listens on port number 3000, and all it does is it responds with hello from process ID, whatever the process ID of the process, and then running on which host name. And that's all it does. So we need to have this application onto our Node.js backend servers. So I have a very simple and dumb deploy script. Do not use this in production. This is very dumb. I'm just using a simplest form as possible so that you understand the concept. So here what we are doing is, first step, we're going to do SSH, then Vagrant at the first server, and this means it will run these commands. That is, it will log in via SSH as this user, and then it will run this command between these codes. That is, first we will create the /app directory, and then we'll change the ownership of that directory to Vagrant, and this dot means set the same group. And in the next step, what we are going to do is we're going to use rsync. If you are not familiar with rsync, rsync is a tool used to synchronize two directories. You can research about rsync and what all these switches mean on your own. So basically what it means is it will sync this current directory which has the index.js file, and then it will send it to the first server in this location. And as the next step, what it will do is it will kill any process with the name of pickle. Now, I repeat, do not do this in production. This is not the right way to do. But I'm just showing it here because it's simple and you will understand how it actually works. In a production environment, there are much better way to actually do this. So here what we are doing is we are killing the existing process, and then we are going to cd into the /app directory which has our index.js. Then we're going to start it using node, then index.js, and we're going to redirect the output to a output.log file, and we're going to redirect the standard error into standard out, and we're going to run the process in the background. And we're going to repeat the same for the next server, which is 12. And I totally missed a step here, which is npm install, because if you see here, we have a dependency of Express.js. So we need to run npm install first so that it installs all the dependencies. Now remember, for now this is in the same repository as the DevOps from scratch. I will move it to another its own local GitHub repository, but for now let's just run it from here. So demos. Okay, so we have the deploy.sh which I just showed. So I'm just gonna run it. All right, so let's see what happened. So I'm going to log into one of the backend servers, and I'm going to check /app. And as you can see, we have the app here. So if I look for the processes running, and we can see the process is actually running here. So if I do curl localhost port number 3000, okay, localhost port number 3000, you can see that it says hello from process and running on this one. Okay, so far so good. So now let's try to access it from our front-end application itself, which is nodejs.devops.esc.sh, and it works. So it says hello from process 5704 running on backend 1. So if I run it again, you can see that it alternated the backend. Now this response is coming from the second backend. So if you keep doing this, you can see that it alternates between 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So what happens if one of the backend is down? So let's say in this one, I'm gonna kill the node process. And let's just make sure that node is not actually running. Yeah, it's not. So if I run it again, see, we don't see any error, except that we are not seeing the response from the backend 1 anymore. So now this actually completely handled by the backend 2. So that's pretty much it for this video. I will link all of this in the description. If you have any questions, please leave a comment, and please leave a like if you actually found this to be useful. And thanks for watching. See you in the next one.